explore some of that today. So just to summarize, a prompt is a series of words, numbers, and other characters that express an idea that can be generated. A prompt can include a mix of characters that speak to all of these elements potentially. So you might see a prompt written in a tool for image generation or for writing as well that is more like 50 words long. It is because they are speaking to all 5 of these things in that prompt. They are prompting for a content type. They are letting an image generator know to give me something that looks like a poster or a sticker or an infographic or a landscape portrait. These kinds of ideas that express the type of content give a specific type of constraint to the generator. Description are all of those beautiful descriptive words that we usually come up with when we're thinking about a scene. If we're going to describe a scene in front of us, we might say, uh, a beautiful sunny day, the mountains in the background, and beautiful golden trees in the foreground, right? So that's describing a scene. That description, we then bring down to as few words as possible. We get rid of the articles and we make those, in some cases, comma separated so that the generator can then work with those and parse them as individual things within a scene or an object. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the ways in which you're going to use nouns, verbs, adjectives, and such in that process in a moment. The third thing here, style, is specifically can reference an art style, let's say Impressionism, Surrealism. We've seen a lot of 3D methods of art making now replicated in tools like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. So quilling and paper art or sculptural forms. I like to do stained glass because stained glass is a very painful physical art to make. And it's very satisfying to be able to create something that is beautiful without spending 100 hours and breaking your hands. So those sorts of media play often come into style. And then you have composition. And composition words will often be the kinds of words you would take from stage direction or from a theater script, a TV script. If you read a script and you're going to read that top entry before every act or every scene, it's going to describe a little bit of the composition potentially for a cinematographer. They might say an establishing shot with 2 people, and they're also going to give some clue to maybe whether it's centered or not centered, what is potentially most important to focus on, or maybe something is out of focus. So there are a wide variety of words here that you might use, including language from photography or videography, from stage, or from other art media as well to help guide the composition process. And then finally, we're going to talk more deeply about parameters, but parameters help constrain and give the algorithm that's doing the generation at the end of the day needs to know, for example, is there an aspect ratio that I'm trying to deliver to, or is there a quality that you are looking for? So we're going to explore both Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. You can take your pick today. Midjourney only gives you a certain number of images, and then you will need to pay for it. Stable Diffusion, many of the tools out there on the web are also free for a little while, and then you need to pay for credits. There are a handful of completely open tools out there, and in the book, there are some of those listed. Some of them are still being developed and released. So things like OpenJourney, Blue Willow. You might want to try Playground AI as well. These are tools that are available to you if you're looking to try something and maybe need to bounce around to a few different tools to find the right thing for you. So just to get started, if you have not gotten started before, you can go to midjourney.com, or you can go to diffusion.land is one tool that you could use today, or dreamstudio.ai. We're going to do both of those for just a few moments. So I would encourage you, this is one that's quite easy to use, dreamstudio.ai. We do have separate videos that dive deeper into some of that as well. So if you're looking for more of that, you can check out the rest of the videos on this channel, and they might help you get there. I'm going to slow down here and give you time to ask questions. So if you're getting stuck at any process point along the way, we're going to be diving into Midjourney, and I'm going to be watching the comments here, but I want you to go ahead and let me know if you need me to stop and give you some time on something in particular. As I mentioned, Midjourney does give you a free trial edition. It's going to be relatively limited. So if you're trying that for the first time, you're going to have, I think, 25 images, something like that. Every time you generate, you're going to be creating a grid of 4 images. And that's what we're going to see right now as I'm going to be bringing in our window from Midjourney. So for those of you who haven't used Midjourney before, it works inside Discord. Not everyone is used to that. So I'm going to be bringing in Discord here. What you're seeing is a direct message I'm having with the Discord bot. Now, when you come into Midjourney in Discord, you're going to be coming into the channel. The channel is it's a very loud space where there are hundreds of thousands of people engaging at the same time. So there are public rooms where you can go and generate, but you can also go to sort of a newbies getting started channel, or if you have your direct messages turned on in Discord, and that's very important, you have to turn those direct messages on, you can then have a direct message, as I'm doing here with a Discord Midjourney bot. So basically, I'm having a one-on-one conversation with a bot doing my generation in a window without necessarily sharing that with the rest of the world. Now, there's reasons to want to work in public, and there's reasons to want to work in private. For what we're doing today, it's just a lot easier to have a relatively private channel, because we're going to go through what each of these tools do and how to use them. And I want you to be able to know how to manipulate that for yourselves. And my apologies, we've got a street cleaner going outside right now. So what you're seeing in front of me with these 4 images, I then prompted from what was a blended image. I took 2 images and some words, and then at the end, I put these parameters. What you're seeing with the 2 dashes at the end, those are parameters specific for the Midjourney bot. So what you're seeing here, the U1, U2, U3, U4, V1, V2, V3, and V4. U in this case stands for upscale. So I can hit U1 and it's going to upscale and give me a higher res version of that. It's basically going to fill in some of these gaps, because when I get a first version, I'm getting something in the 256 pixel area under 512, and that's not really enough information for me for doing something large. So then at this point, I would maybe pick 1 or 2 of the images I think is higher quality, and then potentially upscale to go larger. That's going to give me more detail. It will fill in some detail, potentially with more realism. It might not give me the kind of detail I'm looking for. And so I'm also going to show you what the V does here. V stands for variation. And so what I'm doing here when I click on variation is I am going to see 4 new versions of that image. So U1 is this corner, U2, U3, U4, same V1. So I'm going to, if I want to do a variation of this one, I'm going to click V1. And at this point, I'm going to do something called a remix. And a remix lets me add information to this prompt. Now, there may be reason why I want to pull out information. I don't want to use a name. I don't want to, have too much competing information. Maybe this prompt is too complex, and so I'm not getting exactly what I'm looking for. So a remix could be an add of information or a reducing of information. This might be a place where you could add a lighting cue or a quality information point. Or you could spin it in a different direction and maybe say, add a human. Say, I need a human in this scene. So we'll try that next. I'm going to get back a couple of different images now. You'll notice that these generation times are taking in the range of around a minute per generation. Midjourney, I think, says they average around 50 seconds. So your mileage may vary with other tools. Some tools take quite a few minutes to get to that. And honestly, we can look at some tools like blockade labs on skyboxes where you're going to take a few minutes per image, but you're going to get like a fully panoramic 360. So this image now, we're going to get something that's larger than a 512. And I can certainly decide maybe I do want to download this and work with it and take it off to another program to edit it. Or maybe I want to continue to create variation. So maybe the words are still, there's too many words here, too much. I'm going to get rid of everything that feels extraneous because we've got too much information here. It's just not getting the sort of quality of the home I'm looking for, perhaps. So if the prompt is too complex, it's not going to be able to bring all of those pieces into the image cohesively. It's not going to know what to do with the information. So if I'm throwing too much at it in the prompt, at some point it will break down. And I wanted to give you some sense of how that looked and how that worked. But one thing I'm going to need to show you very quickly is if you are not able to remix when you come into Midjourney, it is a settings choice that turns that on. So I'm really excited about some of these things that are coming out here. I think we might have a good doorway on number 3, and we might have something to work with on number 2, but I want to have the doorway. I want to really focus on that doorway. So let's think about maybe that worked, maybe that didn't, but I wanted you to see what the variation process is bringing, right? So in some cases, certain types of information stayed in some cases, it's trying to throw new information to fill in a gap. So we're going to go back to our slides here, and I'm glad to see a few of you watching in person, and thanks for joining me live. I am here live with you now. It's great to see you. If you are struggling with some of these pieces along the way, please feel free to ask questions. So if you are watching asynchronously, the comment line, also a great place to ask questions too. This course is being turned into a larger course that you can go ahead and subscribe to for all of these video modules in one place. So I'll be sure to send you that link in the future. So we just looked at a Midjourney prompt, and I wanted to show you the 3 elements of a Midjourney prompt very quickly so that you understand those together. What you're looking at when you're looking at the /imagine line, that is the first thing I type when I go to prompt in Midjourney. I type /imagine, and that is the command that the bot recognizes to start the prompt. Other tools don't require this. This is specific to the Midjourney bot because you are giving a bot commands, and so it needs to understand what the command is. In this way, writing for prompts is a little bit like learning code. Like you're learning a new secret code that lets you talk to bots in special ways. So I just want to give you that sort of narrative structure for how you're organizing your thoughts, because bots do speak differently than humans do. So the kinds of language that you're going to get from ChatGPT, for example, may or may not work well if you copy and paste it as your text prompt in this case. We've seen a lot of people trying that out, and it doesn't always work well. ChatGPT does not understand how to form a prompt well. And so it will often come up with something that is more confused than you could do on your own. And I want you to really think about how you would frame a scene before you jump into a generative tool to do that work for you. So think about all of these pieces of the puzzle as being building blocks that you are going to put together. In this case, there are image prompts. Midjourney can take up to 5 images at once and blend them together. And we just saw an image that was blended from 2 specific previous images. But a lot of the things I've been working on lately in terms of my own prompt craft and exploration includes blended images. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we also covered that in the advanced topics course. So exercise 1, getting started. I want you to practice writing prompts that might surprise you. I want you to think about the element of surprise. So start with 3 words. It can be up to 5, but 3 is a place to start. That may not have anything to do with each other, but you're going to want to think about one of them is deeply descriptive. One of them should probably be a style word, like an art style, in this case, surrealist. And think about things that are conceptual or interesting, words that help people reflect or might make them ask a question. So in this case, the prompt was confused, surrealist dripping. What you would type is /imagine prompt. That prompt automatically comes up in the window and you type in confused, surrealist dripping, and this is what you get. This is also what you get. And so we're going to explore, for example, if you keep making variations, basically you keep pushing V1, V2, V3, V4, or you re-roll from Midjourney, what do you get? Because in this case, the surrealist path, I did probably a selection of 250 images over the course of a day. And many of them were just following my creative intuition to say, okay, I love the colorscape of this woman with the dripping paint on her face, right? But it's completely different than this guy who's almost sort of exploding. And figuring out, for example, how to work with remixing in order to get to that place. We're going to talk about that next. So variation, that was the one piece we just did. You can see how that comes together with those crystalline cats. And I'm going to show you what those crystalline cats ended up looking like, because what I did was start them in Midjourney. And then I took them out and I trained them in a second tool called Scenario to make them into specific characters. So for that promo, these characters were basically blended between 50 of these original crystalline cats that I made. So when you're thinking about making a character, for example, you might go through many, many, many iterations where you're making variations until you get very close to the character. And even if you've got 50 versions that look close but not quite, you can then take those images, build a training model, and get the character you're looking for with lots of different emotional states. And we're going to talk a little bit about tips to get a good emotional state, not just a flat image of a cat like you see here, in just a few minutes. So elements of the prompt, we talked a little bit about image prompts, and we can do some of that together in Midjourney or in Stable Diffusion in Dream Studio. It's very easy to do. You just upload the image you want to use. Next, those text prompt descriptors, again, try to get your language down to something that is as few words as possible while painting the picture. And you're going to want to paint the picture from the foreground and what's most important to the background and what is sort of receding backward. Because if you think of the generator as giving the most time and attention to the first few words in your text prompt, you need to front load it. You need to put the most important things in the first few words, because that's where it's going to focus most of its attention when it comes to the transformative process of running the diffusion model and making something for you. Basically, that creative translation that is happening is based on how you have framed the prompt word by word. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can modify how that is read. So algorithmic modifiers. When we're talking about the parameters at the end of a Midjourney prompt, or in Dream Studio, it's what's on the left side. The parameters are aspect ratio, CFG, and they're related to both quality and size, and the output settings in some case. So in Midjourney, and this is something we're going to do right now because I want you to see this, you need to type in /settings to get to what is the Midjourney experience of changing your settings to turn on remix. So we're going to do that right now. I do kind of like what I got out of here, though. I'm not sad about this. It's not what I'm looking for exactly, but like I said, you might want to take 50 images, take them out to another tool, and then use those to train your existing, for, in this case, an architectural piece for a game. So here I'm going to skip ahead to where my message line is. I've gone to the bottom, and I'm going to type settings so that you can see this with me. And when I type settings, hit return, it's going to deliver this sort of matrix of things that I can change. And you can see right now I am in MJV4. Some things only work in MJV3. You can see the suffix, the parameters there changed when I switched to MJV3. If I switch this to what they call Niji mode, which is more of an anime mode, that is also going to change the parameters. It's going to basically be querying to a different version of Midjourney. Midjourney, as you can see, has 5 different versions along with some test versions. I could try this test photo version as well. I could say I want style extremely high, and I'm gonna go with the remix mode in particular. I want to keep on. This is something that we didn't talk too much about, but you need remix mode on if you want to be able to pop up and make those variations in real time. So when you hit V1, V2, V3, V4, if you're not getting the remix window to pop up, go to your settings, hit remix right here. You just have to toggle this on and off to turn it green, and then you're going to have that option. So at this point, I'm feeling good about what I've got. Maybe I want to go in and see what these are going to look like in a more anime version. So let's try a version of V2. And you can see in this case, I did get the remix. That's great. And I'm also going to do it with V3. And if you see me try more than one version, I'm sometimes doing A/B testing. I want to see what 2 different versions might look like. And then I might blend those 2 down the road, or I might, again, use them for a larger model. So by changing from what we had in version 4 to going to a different version, I might lose some of the resolution. It might become more sort of illustrative or cartoon-like. It might become, if I were using the Niji mode, for example, it might look like something out of an anime film or a video game, right? So we can see how much variation we've seen just in the last few versions. We really haven't changed the prompt much. I did get rid of a few words. But I wanted you to be able to see that by simplifying even just a few minutes and bringing it down, I was able to get to something, and I'll bring this up. You can see quite a bit of variation, even on the exact same composition, just by taking certain words out and then by remixing and doing more variations again. So in this point, I am in version 4, but I thought I had turned on photo mode. So let's double check settings. And maybe I did, maybe I didn't. If you're finding that you need to go in and do these kinds of sort of iterative tests. So right now I don't have version 4 turned on. I have MJ test photo. Version 4 tends to be the most lifelike, realistic. If you're looking for something that is closer to photorealism out of Midjourney, some people really love the stylized version of MJV3, and some people are trying to create for anime. So that's where you would use that Niji mode. So I'm going to go ahead and move back and take you through one tool I did not show you very quickly. If you're new to Midjourney and you're looking for it, this is a reroll button. So if you're not happy with the 4 generations, you can just hit that and it's going to generate again. All right, so we're going to dive back into the slides, and I hope those of you who are with me here will ask questions if you need to. And please let me know where these pieces support your systems. All right, so forming aspect ratios. At the end, those parameters, as we mentioned, you're using 2 hyphens and then AR to designate aspect ratio. Aspect ratio can be portrait or landscape. It could be something like 16:9 or 3:2. These often relate to the aspect ratios of other publishing systems, right? So if you're trying to do a vertical reel, you might want to be in vertical, obviously from the get-go, and generate your vertical images. If you follow me on Instagram or on YouTube, you might have seen some of those that I've created into reels straight from Midjourney by using a highly vertical portrait mode, basically saying that I want the aspect ratio to be the same as a YouTube reel or a TikTok reel would be. So ratios are normalized, so you can use a pixel count or you can use a ratio. This is specific to Midjourney. In Dream Studio, what you're just going to do is set the exact pixel count on the right side. Some of the other tools will let you designate down to the pixel how big you want that image to be. This is a tool that I want to give you very quickly. We're not going to spend too much time on it today, but I do want to encourage you to jump into this on your own time. In the book, I do mention it as well. Shane developed Prompter Guide specifically as a relatively open source Google Doc of sorts. It's a template that you can use to form your prompts from scratch. I'm going to encourage you to go over there to prompterguide.com where you can go. And there's a great deal of hidden language in Prompter Guide. So this URL here, the beginner's notes and the language of Promptcraft in terms of if you're looking for 100 different art styles and maybe what is the right language for you. I do have a video coming up that it helps catalog the art styles in a visual form, but I don't want you to feel constrained. There are absolutely tools out there that just help you to understand what is that art style called and what will it look like on the other side. So there are Google Docs, and we do have some of those in this presentation as well. If you need access to this presentation anytime, I hope you will reach out and let me know. So 3 elements of the prompt in Midjourney: image prompt, text prompt, and those parameters, right? So we went through the parameters, go at the end. They have 2 hyphens. You stick them at the back. You can use a negative prompt or a negative weight at that point if you're trying to get something out of your image. In this case, it says no farms. That is a parameter to help create something to take it out of your image to make sure that it doesn't get generated. And now we're going to explore image prompts. Image prompts, or IMG to IMG, it is sometimes called, particularly will generate based on 1 or more images. In this example from Midjourney, you will see that there are 2 images, a tulip 1 and a tulip 2. This is how many people will do style transfers, such as this style transfer of what was my headshot with the sort of Star Trek universe, right? So thinking about a style transfer is often taking 1 or more images of a person or a place, something you're trying to generate on as inspiration, combined with a few words to make that prompt real. In that case, I think it was it was like a headshot for Starfleet Academy, something very similar to that. If you're trying to figure out how to frame these and form them well, it helps to start with just a few words, as few words as possible. Don't overcomplicate it. If you need to create with image weights, Dream Studio and many other tools on Hugging Face, for example, will let you to do that. Within Midjourney, You may need to be in a specific version, for example, V3 of Midjourney, in order to use image weights. What image weights do is basically give more attention or more weight, more emphasis to the image, so that it knows whether you want to really focus on that and the details of that, or maybe you just want to include it but don't necessarily need it as the fundamental piece of your project. So you're going to want to use image weights if you're trying to, for example, do a portrait that is very similar to someone's